I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or
with the
no?
money
Did
that
you
we
lead
had.
an audit?
And the way
Yes
my
or
leadership
no?
has
Did you
been
lead an audit?
stated
Yes or
has
no?
been completely
What are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator,
Yes
every
or
part
no?
of my leadership
Yes
of these
or no?
organizations
Yes
has
or
been
no? Did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that as
to
a
bottom.
no.
Change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years.
For me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in
Excuse
political
me, Mr.
power for the
Hegseth,
last 4
let's
years,
just stop. Let's just
priorities
stop. Let's
other
just
than
stop
standards,
right there.
lethality, and
Mr.
meritocracy
Hegseth,
have
I'm
driven
quoting
decision-making.
you.
Many of your work colleagues have said that you show up for work under the influence of alcohol or drunk. I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense.
Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality
They're not anonymous.
the letters
We've
on
seen-
the record here,
They're not anonymous.
on the record, people
We've
who've
seen
worked
records
me
with
at
names
Vets for
attached to
Freedom,
them.
Concerned Vets for America, and Fox News
One of
attributing
your-
to me
one of your
being
colleagues
working
said-
hard every day
One
behalf
One
of
of
my
your
mission.
colleagues said that you got drunk at an event at a bar and chanted, "Kill all Muslims."
Standards have been changed inside infantry training units, ranger school, infantry battalions to ensure that
Give me one
commanders
example. Please give me an example. I get you're making these
commanders
generalized
meet
statements.
quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women who are
Commanders do
incredibly
not have to
capable
meet
of meeting
quotas
that
for the
standard.
infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist.
You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was,
glad
and
she's here.
you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
Well,
It was
no,
fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful
you've
for the marriage
admitted-
I have to this
No,
amazing woman behind me.
you've admitted that you had sex at that hotel in October 2017. You said it was consensual, isn't that correct?
Anything,
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman.
again,
How do you explain your
completely
judgment?
false charges against me,
You
fully investigated, and I was
you-
completely clear.
You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
If it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
That was a false claim.
So
Just
you
talking
can't,
about a hypothetical.
So are you rejecting Title 18 and Title 42, I think, also has provisions that incorporate the Geneva Convention and the laws of armed combat? Are you saying that those laws should be repealed? That is the law of the land right now.
Senator, we have laws on the books from the Geneva Conventions into the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And then underneath that, you have layers in which standard or temporary rules of engagement are put into place. We fight enemies also, Senator, as our generation understands, that play by no rules. They use civilians as human shields.
So are you saying
target
that
women
the
and
Geneva,
children.
the Geneva
We don't
Convention
do that.
should not
We
be
follow
observed?
rules. We follow rules, but we don't need burdensome rules of engagement that make it impossible for us to win these wars.
You're
And that's
saying
what
two different
President
things. You're
Trump
saying we follow
understands.
rules, but we don't have to follow the rules in all cases. Is that correct?
Senator,
you don't
I'm
like
making
burdensome rules.
Senator, I'm making an important tactical distinction that warfighters will understand. That there are the rules we swear an oath to defend, which are incredibly important, and this committee understands and helps set them. And then there are those echelons above reality from, corps to division to brigade to battalion. And by the time it trickles down to a company or a platoon or a squad level, you have a rules of engagement that nobody recognizes. And then it makes you incredibly difficult to actually do your job on the battlefield.
We've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument
I've got the
completely because
video.
in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards.
So
Standards
got-
are what it's always been
Let's
about,
not have
Senator.
this same fight
Always
again.
been about
I've
Senate
quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here. For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same.
Veterans Healthcare Task Force, a bipartisan task force that never been done before to create policy, to drive policy change on Capitol Hill that organizations fought ferociously against.
Well-
We got the VA Accountability Act passed and the Mission Act passed in a way that a nonprofit
Okay.
of our size,
Right.
veterans
Okay.
organization,
We appreciate
has
it.
never done. And
Thank
that's
you.
testified in all the letters
Thank
that we
you.
put forward to the
I-
committee, which are on the
Okay,
record.
I have limited time. Thank you for that. Give me an example of where you've driven down cost. I've heard the examples that Senator Blumenthal gave. The cost was a real problem for you in your 50-person organization that you actually raised a lot less than what you actually spent. Did you drive costs down if in a 50-person organization? Let me tell you, we've got to drive costs down dramatically in an organization of 3 million people and hundreds of billions of dollars. You don't have that experience that you can talk about. To me, this is, or acquisition reform. Acquisition reform, you bring that up. Have you had experience in acquisition reform?
I've written about and studied on acquisition reform.
Have you
for quite
actually
some
done
time.
it?
Because what we need in the hands of our warfighters better change because we're not doing it well right now.
It better, and we need people who have experience actually doing that.
Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCMJ?
Those
Yes
are
or no?
multiple false anonymous reports peddled by NBC
Do you
News
know that
run directly
drinking on the job
contradictory to the
is
dozens of men and women at
not
Fox News
contemplated?
Channel
I'm
who
not
I work
hearing-
with
I'm
who
not
came
hearing
on
the
the
answer to my
record
question.
and said,
In June of 2020, then President Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown DC, an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
Would you
events,
carry
holding
out
a
an
riot
order to
shield on
shoot
behalf of my
protesters
country.
in the legs?
I saw 50
as
Secret Service
directed
agents
to
get injured by
Secretary Esper?
rioters trying to jump over the fence, set
Again,
the church on fire, and
You
destroy
know
a
what, that sounds
statue.
to me that you will
Chaos.
comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg.
What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other
Okay.
than serving in the military. So my job has been
So
to
no, the
lead
answer is no.
men
Can
and
you
women in
name one of the
combat.
three main ones that the
If you're
Secretary
talking
of
about
Defense
defense
signs?
arrangements, I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching
So-
about Status of Forces Agreements
But you don't
inside
remember to
Afghanistan.
mention it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth.
Yes or no, please. Do you believe that VSOs are wrong to support veterans in obtaining the benefits that they have rightfully earned and deserved when they signed that line like you did for your service?
Senator,
yes or no,
veterans
please.
deserve the benefits they've earned. I have been in many battles with traditional
So
veteran
you would
service
agree that
organizations over
so-
differences of opinion about how to deliver those
So
services,
yes or
including
no?
Veterans
Do you believe
Choice,
VSOs are wrong?
which is a
I'm
VSOs
gonna-
is a very broad term. We were a VSO also, ma'am. But
So
some of those
should
services
they be
took
able
a
to
traditionally
obtain, should they be able to
bureaucratic
help
approach.
the veterans obtain the benefits that they have earned? Yes or no? Should anyone be able to help?
Every veteran should have
Right, thank
rapid
you.
access to
Do you
all the
believe that
benefits that
veterans
they've
should be
earned.
ashamed for
Absolutely.
having sought and obtained the benefits that they have earned?
Senator, I think
Yes or
we
no?
should be ashamed as a nation of the amount of veterans that commit
you think
suicide
veterans
because they hit a
should-
brick
should be
wall.
ashamed?
They commit suicide because
This is
they hit
not
a
the
brick
question,
wall
sir.
of the
I'm going to
bureaucracy
move
of
on.
the
I'm going
VA.
to take that
And
as a
reformers
yes.
are not courage enough.
How about veterans who suffer lasting
it on.
injuries or illnesses due to their military service? Do you think they deserve our support and assistance? Are you willing to support our veterans organizations that will help our veterans get every damn thing that they deserve because they signed on the dotted line to keep us safe, just like you did. I respect that. Will you?
Senator, with all due humility, I don't know that there's anyone in this room over the last 20 years that have worked harder to ensure that our veterans are taken care of. It has
So
been
do
a
you think
passion
veterans
of
are
my life,
dependent on the-
alongside with so many on this dais, to make sure that veterans receive.
Have you been personally involved in discussions of using the U.S. military active duty inside the United States?
Senator, I'm glad we finally got to the topic of border security equaling national security, because it's been abdicated and ignored for the last 4 years.
That wasn't my question. I'm just asking, have you been involved? You're about to be the Secretary of Defense potentially. Have you been involved in discussions about using the active duty military inside the United States?
Senator, I am not yet the Secretary of Defense.
Right. I'm
If
just asking.
confirmed, I would be party to any number of
So you
conversations.
haven't been in any of these
which I would not
conversations?
reveal what I have discussed with the President of the United
No,
States.
just
or
have
not.
you been in conversations? You're going to be in charge of 3 million people. The active duty that I know you care about, I believe you care about. So have you been in conversations about using the active duty in any way? Whether it's setting up in detention camps, policing dangerous cities, have you been involved in any of those conversations?
Certainly, I have been involved in conversations relating to doing things this administration has not, which is secure the southern border and not allow floods of illegals
So
to
are
enter our
you-
country
so-
through an invasion
Okay.
that threatens the American people.
Okay,
And
okay,
there
I
are
got
ways in which the military is already playing a role in that, to include 5,000 National
Do you
Guardsmen from
believe
Indiana and
that the
Texas
US
who are at the border right now, allowing for border
Will
security.
you
So there is
ask the
plenty of
active
precedent
duty
for
military to
members
staff
enforcing
detention
our southern
centers?
border.
rather than those who stand up and say, this is not right. So what's the response to your service members who personally witnessed these and courageously reported them to their superiors?
Senator, as someone who's led men in combat directly and had to make very difficult decisions, I've thought very deeply about the balance between legality and lethality, ensuring that the men and women on the front lines have the opportunity to destroy with and close the enemy, and that lawyers aren't the ones getting in the way. I'm not talking about disavowing the laws of war or the Geneva Conventions or the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Sir, I'm talking about restrictive rules of engagement that these men and women behind me understand they've lived with on the battlefield, which has made it more difficult to defeat our enemies. In many of the cases you're talking about in particular, sir, there was evidence withheld, there was prosecutorial misconduct, and as someone who looks case by case and defaults to the warfighter, to the men and women with dust on their boots, not the second guessers in air-conditioned offices in Washington, D.C.
Excuse me.
I look case by case and was proud to work with President Trump to understand those cases and ensure that our warriors are always looked out for. So from story after story in the media, left-wing media, we saw anonymous source after anonymous source based on second or third-hand accounts. And time again, stories would come out and people would reach out to me and say, you know, I've spoken to this reporter about who you really are, and I was willing to go on the record. But they didn't print my quote. They didn't print any of my quotes. Or I've worked with you for 10 years, or I was your accountant, or I was your chief operating officer, or I was your board member, or I was with you on 100 different tour stops for Concerned Veterans for America. No one called me. No one asked about your conduct on the record or off the record. Instead, a small handful of anonymous sources were allowed to drive a smear campaign, an agenda about me, because our left-wing media in America today, sadly, doesn't care about the truth. All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me. And why do they want to destroy me? Because I'm a change agent and a threat to them, because Donald Trump was willing to choose me, to empower me, to bring the Defense Department back to what it really should be, which is warfighting. So I'm willing to endure these attacks.